A reading from the second book of Maccabees. It happened that 7 brothers with their mother were arrested and tortured with whips and scourges by the king, to force them to eat pork in violation of God's law. Most admirable and worthy of everlasting remembrance was the mother, who saw her 7 sons perish in a single day, yet bore it courageously because of her hope in the Lord. Filled with a noble spirit that stirred her womanly heart with manly courage, she exhorted each of them in the language of their ancestors with these words: I do not know how you came into existence in my womb. It was not I who gave you the breath of life, nor was it I who set it in order, the elements of which each of you is composed. Therefore, since it is the Creator of the universe who shapes each man's beginning, as he brings about the origin of everything, he in his mercy will give you back both breath and life, because you now disregard yourselves for the sake of his law. Antiochus, suspecting insult in her words, thought he was being ridiculed. As the youngest brother was still alive, the king appealed to him, not with mere words, but with promises and oaths, to make him rich and happy if he would abandon his ancestral customs. He would make him his friend and entrust him with high office. When the youth paid no attention to him at all, the king appealed to the mother, urging her to advise her boy to save his life. After he had urged her for a long time, she went through the motions of persuading her son. In derision of the cruel tyrant, she leaned over to her son and said in their native language, Son, have pity on me, who carried you in my womb for 9 months, nursed you for 3 years, brought you up, educated and supported you to your present age. I beg you, child, to look at the heavens and the earth, and see all that is in them. Then you will know that God did not make them out of existing things. And in the same way, the human race came into existence. Do not be afraid of this executioner, but be worthy of your brothers and accept death, so that in the time of mercy I may receive you again with them. She had scarcely finished speaking when the youth said, What are you waiting for? I will not obey the king's command. I obey the command of the law given to our fathers through Moses. But you who have contrived every kind of affliction for the Hebrews will not escape the hands of God. Verbum Domini. Lord, when your glory appears, my joy will be full.
Lord, when your glory appears, my joy will be full.
Hear, O Lord, a just suit. Attend to my outcry. Hearken to my prayer from lips without deceit.
Lord, when your glory appears, my joy will be full.
My steps have been steadfast in your paths. My feet have not faltered. I call upon you, for you will answer me, O God. Incline your ear. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. But I in justice shall behold your face. On waking I shall be content in your presence.
chose you from the world to go and bear fruit that will last, says the Lord. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Lucam.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
While people were listening to Jesus speak, he proceeded to tell a parable because he was near Jerusalem, and they thought that the kingdom of God would appear there immediately. So he said, "A nobleman went off to a distant country to obtain the kingship for himself, and then to return. He called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 gold coins, and told them, 'Engage in trade with these until I return.' His fellow citizens, however, despised him and sent a delegation after him to announce, 'We do not want this man to be our king.' But when he returned, after obtaining the kingship, he had the servants called to whom he had given the money to learn what they had gained by trading. The first came forward and said, 'Sir, your gold coin has earned 10 additional ones.' He replied, 'Well done, good servant. You have been faithful in this very small matter. Take charge of 10 cities.' Then the second came and reported, 'Your gold coin, sir, has earned 5 more.' And to this servant, too, he said, 'You take charge of 5 cities.' Then the servant came and said, 'Sir, here is your gold coin. I kept it stored away in a handkerchief, for I was afraid of you, because you are a demanding man. You take up what you did not lay down, and you harvest what you did not plant.' He said to him, 'With your own words I shall condemn you, you wicked servant. You knew that I was a demanding man, taking up what I did not lay down and harvesting what I did not plant. Why did you not put my money in a bank? Then on my return I would have collected it with interest.' And to those standing by he said, 'Take the gold coin from him and give it to the servant who has 10. But they said to him, 'Sir, he has 10 gold coins.' He replied, 'I tell you, to everyone who has, more will be given, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Now as for those enemies of mine who do not want me as their king, bring them here and slay them before me.' After he had said this, he proceeded on his journey up to Jerusalem." Verbum Domini.
Nascivi Christe.
Jesus gives us a strong command to be good stewards, to be faithful stewards to the talents that we have been given. And he puts it in rather stark terms, talking about slaying his enemies and taking what little one has that has been unprofitable, and giving it to another that has made good use of what he has been given. It's pretty strong. And yet, in the opening prayer today, we hear about the joy of our constancy in serving the Lord, the gladness that a person has in serving the Lord. And it hit me in the opening reading how true that is, right? We have 2 ways to choose. We can serve the master of this world, the master that is our fallen human nature, the evil one, and that steals our joy, right? If we go off on a life of full of self and selfish desires and things, it robs us of this peace, joy, gladness that the Lord has to offer us, right? If we serve him as the King of Kings, we know a new fullness in this world, even in this world. We see that we're at the end of the liturgical year, and the Catholic Church has a beautiful liturgical cycle that presents to us the mysteries of Christ's life. And these mysteries are presented to us sacramentally under the veil of signs, and we can have contact, in faith with the life of Christ, which is redemptive for us. And we're at the end of that liturgical year, right? We're coming up on the Feast of Christ the King, and we have these meditations on his second coming, on his return. And it's a time to think about the big picture, I think, and think about what our lives are about and how we're serving him. And today he gives us this parable of a nobleman, right, who is not well liked by some of his countrymen. And this nobleman goes off to a distant country to obtain this kingship for himself and then return. And this directly parallels to the time that the people are living in, right? We had the Herodian kings, the Jewish kings that were puppet kings for Rome, right? And they would have to get their approval to be the ruler, from the Roman government. And so they would oftentimes go and then return, and Jesus is drawing upon this image. Jesus, he is going to suffer, die, rise again, ascend to his Father. He'll be seated at the right hand of his Father, and he's telling us that he will come again in glory. And we refer to this as his second coming. There will be a general judgment, right, and a resurrection of the body, right, that we will all experience. And certainly at least the general judgment, right? And we don't know when this is going to take place, and we don't know how, right? The church is very clear about that how creation will be transformed. He's going to come again in glory and will be transformed this material world, right? All of creation. It'll be freed, Vatican II used the language of, will be freed of the stain of sin, burnished and transfigured, freed from vanity, transfigured by his glory, right? That he comes again in glory. And the church teaches that the kingdom is present in mystery now, right? We clearly don't see the full flowering of this kingdom, right? There's still sin and death and suffering and inequalities right here on earth. But at the second coming, it's going to be brought to full flower, consummation, we call it, to have this fullness. And he will hand over this kingdom to his Father, transform this whole world, all of humanity and the material creation, hand it over to the Father, right? Redeemed by his sacrifice and his resurrection. And Vatican II, in his document on the Church in the Modern World, has some very powerful things to say about this moment. It says that charity and its fruits, the good fruits of our nature and enterprise, we will find them again, right? Cleansed and purified, from self-love and vanity. We'll find them again, that there's something lasting, right? Scripture tells us clearly that charity is lasting. And the fruits of those good works, there's lastingness there in some mysterious way. But that this kingdom is now present in mystery, it's hidden, seemingly has meager dimensions, right, in comparison to the great kingdoms of this world, right, that there is a hiddenness to the work of the gospel in the sense that we don't see the full fruitfulness of it, right? There's still sin and death, as I mentioned. But we also say that the church is the seed, sign, and instrument of this kingdom. The church is the beginning of this kingdom. We know that Jesus inaugurated the kingdom on the cross. When he was lifted up, right, John tells us he draws all men to himself, and that's the beginning, the seed of this kingdom. The church is a sign, that we hopefully are living up to our call to have, especially, amongst Christians, but it's supposed to be for everyone, right? This brotherly love, that through sacramental life, through living of the gospel, we have this communion with the Trinity, right? That's a sign of the communion that's going to have a fullness, a new fullness in heaven. We see that here on earth in our love for one another, right? We hear that about, the early church witness of, see how those Christians love each other, right? We're supposed to witness to that in the world, and that is a sign of this heavenly life. And certainly the church is the instrument of the kingdom, right? She proclaims the gospel. She proclaims the good news of what Jesus has done for us and as a call to faith, and administers the sacraments to strengthen us on the journey. We think about the Eucharist, right? It gives us strength and hope, right? These earthly elements of bread and wine are transformed into his body and blood, the very image of this final transformation that happens in the second coming. The Eucharist is a banquet of brotherly solidarity and a foretaste of the heavenly banquet. We think of the sacrament of reconciliation given to us to strengthen us on this journey, right? To get back up if we have fallen, given us grace to overcome sin in our life. We think about the priesthood itself, right? That the Lord has given us shepherds to encourage us and to guide us. And we see that so beautifully in the church's magisterial teachings, right? To guide us in this journey. All this knowledge and faith in the second coming should stimulate us, should invigorate us to be good stewards, right? It doesn't detach us from the world and say, well, it doesn't really matter, Jesus is coming again, we'll just sit back. But it should invigorate us, right, to prepare the way for this kingdom. We see that the good steward here, he takes one coin, turns it into 10. Another one takes the 1, turns it to 5. Differing amounts, yet we see that the master is overjoyed. He's pleased with both for their fruitfulness, for their efforts. And the Catechism speaks of this passage as being, telling us that we all have different talents, right? We have different amounts that have been entrusted to us. The Lord doesn't distribute his gifts equally. We have different abilities, different gifts, but we need each other, right? We are to work. We have an interrelationship with one another, and we build up each other, that all need to bring forth their gifts, no matter what they are. And so Jesus isn't expecting the impossible. He's just expecting us to use what we've been given, right? To become what we're called to be and to use whatever we have. The master in the parable is not happy with the one who was given 1 gold coin and just comes back with 1 gold coin, right? He expects us to bear fruit and at least to earn interest. And that fear is not an excuse, right? Oftentimes our fear is rooted in our self-love, and he's calling us, to get out of that and to bring all our resources that we have into the service of this human family, of human community. We need each other's gifts, right? And Vatican II speaks of how some are given this call to give clear witness to the desire for a heavenly home and to keep it alive, to remind people. Specifically, I think it was speaking about religious who are supposed to model the spirit of the Beatitudes, but certainly extended, I was thinking, to the suffering or to the poor and the weak, especially, who possess Christian hope, have a special trust in the Lord. That orients us all to focus on the kingdom, right? That we're using what we have in service of the kingdom. You ever notice how some people in this world especially remind us of our heavenly homeland? They're not of this world, so to speak, right? They're very much in service of the kingdom. Others, and speaking of the laity, others are dedicated to the earthly service of men and to make ready the material of the celestial realm. The laity's role is to sanctify this temporal order, to impregnate it with gospel values, and to order it for the bestowal of the kingdom that Jesus is bringing. Pope Benedict often stressed in his writings about how this kingdom is the bride, the heavenly Jerusalem, right? The book of Revelation has the image of the bride coming down from heaven, and that this kingdom is bestowed. It's more than just our efforts, right? The kingdom is present in fullness in Jesus Christ. So our path on earth here is to prepare for this bestowal, for this gift of the kingdom that Jesus gives us. And that Benedict would stress that this fullness is achieved beyond history, right? That it's achieved through this eschatological judgment, right? This judgment at the end of time, the sheep and the goats are separated, Satan is condemned to hell. That's a victory, his triumph over evil. So it's not, as the Catechism states, this progressive ascendancy of the kingdom, we just keep getting better and better, right? We see so many problems today. We see still very much a fallen human nature at work. This kingdom is Jesus, right? And he is making the gift of himself to us. So this should stimulate us here on earth to build up the family of God, to do whatever we can to help people come to know Christ, grow in their faith, to serve this conversion to Jesus Christ and to his kingdom, to his gospel, right? Because we're trying to order this world for that, right? That's what we're about. A Christian should have this hope and this anticipation, this longing for the fullness of the kingdom, here and now, right? Serving and forming the human family to become the people of God, right? That this coming consummation is going to happen at the end of time, but we're preparing for it now, right? We long for it. So we're not just living apart from the world, but we're very much in it because we love Jesus, we love our brothers and sisters, we want them to know him, we want to make this world better, for our children and for those after us. All that is invigorated by our faith, right, and our belonging to him. May we be faithful to this mission and be able to have a fruitfulness in our lives that will make the Master happy.